Hey everyone, welcome back to Cybersphere Chronicles. Have you ever wondered what it's like to be a cable splicer? It's one of those jobs that's critical but rarely gets the spotlight. From early morning tool checks to late day testing, a splicer's work is packed with challenges, problem solving, and, honestly, a bit of adventure. In today's video, we're going to take you through a typical day in the life of a cable splicer. We'll tackle the unexpected issues that pop up on job sites, talk about the creative solutions we come up with, and give you a real look at the nuts and bolts of this fascinating career. Ready to see what a splicer's day looks like? Let's jump in. Every day as a cable splicer starts early. Before we even get to the site, there's a lot of preparation involved. The first thing I do is double-check all my tools. My splicing kit, fiber optic cables, cutting tools, fusion splicer, safety gear, everything has to be accounted for. Why? Because missing one tool on site could mean hours of delays. Being a cable splicer is not just about working with cables, it's also about being a jack of all trades. Some days you're working in tight underground spaces, and other days you're climbing up poles or working in server rooms. The variety keeps things interesting, but it also means you need to be prepared for anything. Now, the real excitement begins once you reach the site. And by excitement, I mean the challenges. Every site presents its own set of problems. One of the biggest challenges for us is dealing with environmental factors. Imagine trying to splice fiber optic cables in the pouring rain or in extreme heat. It makes an already delicate task even more difficult. And then there's the location. Sometimes you're splicing in tight manholes, barely big enough to move in, or working high above the ground. Whether it's the cramped conditions underground or balancing on a ladder to reach cables above, these environments test both your skills and your patience. But here's the thing, this job is all about adaptability. For example, if you're splicing underground and the cables are damp or muddy, you can't just stop. You need to protect the splice from moisture, which means using protective enclosures or heat shrink tubing. A lot of the time, it's about thinking on your feet and solving problems as they arise. One of the most common challenges we face is dealing with damaged or broken cables. Whether it's from wear and tear, accidents during construction, or even something as simple as a rodent chewing through the cables, you've got to be prepared for anything. Repairing broken fiber optic cables is no small task. Fiber optic splicing, in particular, requires delicate handling because the glass fibers inside are as thin as a human hair. The slightest misstep can ruin the splice. That's where fusion splicing comes in, a method that allows us to fuse fibers together with almost zero signal loss. Speaking of signal loss, that's another common issue. If a splice isn't perfect, you can experience signal degradation. This not only affects the network, but also the end user, whether that's someone's home internet or an entire business network. So when we splice, we're not just making a physical connection, we're maintaining the integrity of the entire communication system. Problem solving on the job. Thinking on your feet. What sets a good splicer apart is how quickly they can problem solve on the job. You don't always get perfect conditions, but you still need to deliver a perfect result. Let's say you're working on a fiber optic splice, and the weather starts acting up. Rain, for instance, can mess with your equipment and your cables. To work around this, you might set up a temporary shelter or use waterproofing materials to keep everything dry. Another issue we often face is cable length. Sometimes the cable is just too short for a clean splice. In this case, we might need to extend the cable, which requires more time and materials. But when you're on a tight schedule, speed is of the essence. That's why having the right tools, like a fusion splicer, is crucial because it cuts down the time significantly. Then there's troubleshooting. Sometimes you finish a splice, but something still doesn't work right. In these situations, you've got to run diagnostics to see where the issue lies, whether it's a weak splice or damage elsewhere in the system. You can't leave the job site until everything checks out. Multitasking, managing multiple jobs. Another part of the job that people often don't realize is the amount of multitasking involved. As a cable splicer, you're rarely working on just one thing. You might be splicing one cable while overseeing the testing of another connection. Time management is key, especially when the pressure is on to restore service as quickly as possible. In larger projects, you're also collaborating with other teams, maybe engineers, linemen, or construction crews, so communication is essential. You need to stay on top of your tasks while also coordinating with the other parts of the team to make sure everything runs smoothly. The end of the day, testing and final checks. After a full day of splicing, we're not done until the system is tested. Testing is the most critical part of the job because it ensures that everything is functioning as it should. We test for signal strength, continuity, and overall performance. If something's not right, we troubleshoot and fix it on the spot. Testing can sometimes reveal hidden issues, like weak splices or slight misalignments in the cables. When that happens, you have to go back and redo the splice. It's meticulous work, but it's necessary to ensure the integrity of the network. Once the system passes all the tests, we can finally pack up and call it a day. But even then, the job isn't quite over. There's usually paperwork to complete, logs to fill out, and reports to send back to the team. But when everything's working perfectly, it's all worth it. And that's a typical day in the life of a cable splicer. It's a job full of challenges, but also full of rewards. From dealing with unpredictable weather to solving tricky cable issues, every day is different, and that's part of what makes this career so exciting. If you enjoyed this look into the world of cable splicing, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment with any questions you have. We're always here to share more about the world of tech and cables. Thanks for tuning into, and remember, stay connected.